Alright, this is John Colo with GrowingYourGreens.com to another exciting episode for you. And guys, today I'm here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and most homeowners here in Las Vegas have desert landscaping because the water district pays you money to take out your lawn. So they have basically either a fake lawn or maybe something just like rocks or nothing, depending if you have an HOA or not. That's Homeowners Association. I'd encourage you guys, if you guys are into gardening, never buy a house where there's an HOA. Luckily, in this area, there is no HOA. So the front yard I'll be showing you guys today is like something I would see in California. It's extremely rare, and I've never seen a garden in Vegas that's like this, that literally has raised beds in the front yard. So I saw this on Instagram and I messaged the guy and I'm like, I gotta come over and check it out. He's like, yeah, John, no problem. I've been watching you for a long time. So I'm so glad to show you guys somebody else that probably isn't even into more gardening stuff than even I am into, because he's got all kinds of stuff growing in his front yard as well as his backyard, despite even having a pool. We were talking before we go out in his yard. He's like, John, if I have any empty space, man, I'm filling it with some plants. And I'm going to show you guys all kinds of ways he's growing more food at his house here in Las Vegas, which, to remind you guys, is very uncommon. I want you guys, no matter where you live, to start growing some food. Whether you live in one of the harshest climates in the whole country that gets the least amount of rain, I want you guys to grow food and let this be a motivation to you. So let's go ahead and take you guys on a tour of this Las Vegas front yard and backyard garden that is amazing. All right, guys, so this is the front yard. Check it out, man. Like, he's got the steps going up to his house, and then on both sides of the steps, you guys can see he's basically got sunflowers growing up, so it makes like a pathway. And then in between the sunflowers, as I show you guys, he actually has fruit trees planted that he's actually going to keep nice and small and trimmed down. And then you guys can see he has basically a concrete block raised bed that he's painted and even put caps on so you could actually sit on it. So they're nice raised beds. He's got all efficient drip irrigation inside the beds, and he has lots of things growing inside each of the beds, as well as a fig tree and other fruit trees in the yard. So let's go ahead and take you guys in a close-up tour of his front yard raised bed garden. All right, guys, so this is the front yard raised bed. As you guys can see, he's got the raised bed here, and he's got the soil from Viragrow linked down below, plus he also adds his own earthworm castings that he makes here, as well as his own compost. He doesn't like the Viragrow like straight because it has lots of sand in it, which I'd agree with. Sand is you know, maybe it has some use because it's good for drainage, but it adds a lot of weight to it, and it's kind of a lot of filler. So instead, he also adds perlite, as well as things like rock dust, and uses fish emulsion. So you guys can see he basically planted all the crops. This looks like some tomatillos. He's got some okra here, some kind of cucumbers or melons. He's got some like berries here. He's got some sunflowers here, and also he's got these guys, which are actually doing quite well. This is the roselle, or it makes the little like hibiscuses that they use to make tea out of, but also, of course, all the leaves are edible. They kind of taste like sorrel. So these are doing quite well. I'm impressed on how well they're growing. And then basically the tomatillos and the cucumbers or melons biting across. Then he's got basically like tomatoes here, and just got random plants kind of like mixed in. All right, that's the first bed. Let's take a look next at this walkway full of sunflowers. All right, guys, so you guys can see on both sides of me, he's got the sunflowers here coming up. But then aside from the sunflowers, he's also got fruit trees. I mean, this is like maybe a foot wide. And over on this side, there's a fruit tree right here. This is a dwarf Red Haven peach, which, like, this is a small, this tree could get huge, guys, and he's growing it right here in the front. So that's gonna be interesting to see how he ends up pruning this in the long run. Also, of course, he has another fruit tree over here hiding amongst the sunflowers. And this is the Satsuma plum. He also has some citrus along here as well. Some of the citrus is like smaller, so the sunflowers actually kind of are some sun protection for this citrus. It'll be interesting to see how he ends up training these trees He says he's gonna keep them smaller, but like this is right in the walkway, so like are the branches gonna go only like out, and then maybe it's gonna, you can't park a car there, and I guess the branches on this tree could go out that direction. It's gonna be interesting to see how this all turns out. All right guys, so behind the front raised bed that I showed you guys, immediately after that he has this fig tree that he probably planted here about 4 years ago or so. This is like I think a black mission fig, and this was existing. You know, I did that actually in my original front yard garden in California. There was a fig tree existing because that was one of the first things I planted. So this tree takes up, could be like a couple of garden beds really, but he said this fig tree gives him lots of figs. So the reason why this gardener is growing food is so that he knows nobody else touched his food and nobody else sprayed anything on his food other than him, right? And that's very important to know where your food comes from, how it was treated, how it was sprayed, and of course, he has some of the freshest food in Las Vegas. Because I mean, most people just are literally slaves to the store. They gotta go to the store. When they're out of food, you gotta go to the store. When he's out of food, he can just come outside, has all different kinds of fruits, vegetables, and leafy greens to eat. Next up, we're gonna show you guys this raised bed right behind us. All right guys, so this is the raised bed kind of to the side of the fig tree, and it's actually interconnected because it kind of makes like an L or an E thing, kind of funny shape. But he's got lemon verbena, more cucumbers and melons, some like oregano, different herbs, another fruit tree. These fruit trees will kind of get tall and then kind of, they won't block the sun because the sun comes from this direction. And more sunflowers, more berries. He's got some Aunt Molly's ground cherries here. He's got different kinds of peppers mixed in. More peppers, more basil, different kinds of basil. Yeah, so, and then it's all wood chipped. So actually I want to show you guys next some rare cucumbers he's growing here that loves the desert heat, because that could be a challenge to grow cucumbers. And also some, his best performing melons that he grows that are sweet. All right guys, so I want to show you guys this. This is a cucumber here, and you guys can see it right here. This is a cucumber that looks like a melon, right? These are some very uncommon cucumbers. I think they're from like the Middle East. Armenian cucumbers are technically melons, but they're kind of used as cucumbers when they're young. These are kind of similar cucumbers from the CucumberShop. That guy has some super rare cucumbers, and especially if you guys live in the desert areas or hot climates where you're not able to grow normal cucumbers, these ones will perform well. So you can see this is a little bit larger one, and here's a little baby coming on right here. And then over here, I want to show you guys these melons that he's growing. So next, I want to show you guys the melons, his favorite melons to grow that perform really well in the desert heat. And they are this plant right here, and they're still kind of getting big, but they're little round melons right here. They're so cute. They're gonna get big. Some of them get bigger, some of them stay small, but these are a Baker Creek seed called, I think it's called Sweet Rich Melons. If I remember, I'll put a link down below. But yeah, these are his favorite melons. They love the heat, and they've always performed well for him. Like me, he hasn't had luck growing the super huge, giant watermelons, all right? Of course, in this bed, he's got lots of different kinds of peppers, as well as other kind of squash he's growing, as well as eggplants. He's an eggplant lover like myself. He gets a lot of varieties from the Baker Creek, not just the standard super big, you know, jumbo eggplants, but he got a lot of the Asian varieties that are the skinnier kinds, and he's like, man, my eggplants taste way sweeter, not as watery as the ones from the store. All right, so next up, this is another one of the raised beds that come to the walkway. Once again, this is in the shape of the E. We got the two prongs. I guess we're missing one prong, but we have the long end on that side. We got basil. We got some eggplant. We got some squash. I think it's a trombaccio squash. It's like an Italian variety. He loves that because they get super long. Lots of food. More melons or cucumbers here. More squash, peppers, tomatoes, so a lot of common items. He's doing some seeds. He's trying to grow the cucamelons and actually get some fruit here in the desert. It's been his nemesis. He's also growing the West Indy burgherkin over there, which is one of my favorites for sure. So while he does hand water every day, and he likes to inspect his plants every day by hand watering, making sure that water gets everywhere, and he waters some plants more than others. He also does have an irrigation system, so I'm going to show you guys how he does the irrigation system here in the front. All right guys, so the first step in the irrigation system is to have filtered water, especially here in Las Vegas. You guys can see he has some small filters. I would recommend getting the larger filters or the big blue, like 20-inch filters. He has a sediment filter, and you can already see the sediment filter is just basically turning brown from all the rest sediment. This is a GAC, or granulated activated carbon, and then he has a carbon block. So I'd recommend maybe like sediment and then like a KDF, because the chlorine is the main thing you want to remove, and then follow that by the carbon. And then it's basically, he runs all his piping through the black PVC piping. He likes to use it and see it on top, because those will often leak, so he wants to be able to inspect all his pipes just visually by looking at them to ensure there are no leaks every day he's in the garden. Alright, so he's got the standard 0.700 black tubing, which then he runs into this, which I've never seen before. It's basically, it gives you like a manifold, and these are, I think, the quick disconnects that you press on, and these will come apart. And that way he doesn't have to pop holes in the tubing, which if you pop holes in the tubing, then you could end up, the plugs could actually end up springing a leak and coming out. Or you could get leaks when you put in the holes. There'll be little leaks around the edges. So I know my system has a lot of that. So I definitely like this way of doing the quick disconnects, which then he goes to these little sprayers here, which are adjustable, so you could turn these off, and then these kind of like a little spray, maybe out to 18 inches, 2 feet max. He likes to basically water a whole area versus do drip at a specific area. I mean, I definitely agree with him on one level that it's better to water a wide area and make sure there's soil moisture all the way around. This allows, you know, plants to grow in a wider area than right at the drip. In addition, this also keeps the soil more moist for the soil microbes in there, so that they can stay alive, because, you know, they can't live if it's completely dry. At present time, he has a system coming on only 2 times a day, maybe I think at like 6 in the morning, 8 at night, and then he will hand water maybe usually around 4 or 5 or 6 somewhere in the evening time, and probably after he gets home from work, to just check everything out. And that's all the water he does for his garden. Alright guys, so he has a whole patio in the front of his house. After the raised beds, there's like this concrete area, so he decided to get one of these guys, which is basically a raised bed he got from Tractor Supply. He said there's like they're $100 actually. It's made out of wood with actually a thin sheet metal painted black to hold the soil. It's kind of in the shape of a V, and then they're off the ground. This normally comes with 4 legs. He did put some casters on it so he could roll it around here. This he does hand water each and every day. And in here he's got some nice cherry tomatoes, some eggplants. I think he's got some peppers, sweet potatoes as well, and maybe it looks like some basil or something. And then of course all this of course is wood chipped with his soil, and then the wood chips on top. Looks like this is doing very good for him. I personally prefer a living mulch, but on some levels, you know, definitely keeping the wood mulch on top has its own sets of pros and cons. I mean, definitely, if it can keep the soil moisture level at a higher percentage, it's definitely a good thing, because, you know, if you don't have soil moisture right at the top where it tends to dry out, the earthworms won't come to the top. And he says every year his earthworms will end up eating some of the wood chips, and of course the soil level will drop down every year, so that he has to re-top off his beds. That's another good sign that you have a good soil, you know, rhizosphere working for your plants. So definitely. Oh, and then for the wood chips, he basically at the end of the season he scrapes them all off, and then fills up his beds, and then puts them right back on top again to keep growing in the next seasons. Alright guys, so while his front yard is impressive, what he's done with the backyard is even more impressive, because he has a large pool that takes up most of the space. But despite having a pool, he grows all around the pool to grow the most food, and some of it is actually quite impressive. So let's head in the backyard and check it out. All right, guys, so here in the backyard, he's got a little garden oasis. Yes, he does have some grass. He does have a child, so the child can play on the grass, but you can see all along the edges, he has things growing, actually lots of food growing, and in addition, even on more of the concrete space, he has more raised bed planters and containers to grow even more food in. So let's give you guys a quick tour. All right, so in this area, guys, he has basically a arch that he's made with the stock panels. He also has stock panels kind of against his block wall, which actually he kind of secured down, which is kind of cool because mine are kind of just sitting there by welding and then putting a brace into the top. And then you can see he's growing the sweet potato up it. By the end of the season, this will be covered in sweet potato. He also has different kinds of tree collards and kale growing, different kinds of squash below, but mostly in this area it looks like he has a lot of sweet potatoes. He's also getting the sweet potatoes to grow up and over this arch, and I think on the other side of the arch, he's maybe got some kind of squash that's gonna come up. And then I want to show you guys these hanging baskets. Now this is crazy to me. He's growing in these hanging baskets here that have soil in there. They're hanging. He runs irrigation up to here so they get watered. And I guess, you know, the thing for me is on these hanging baskets, they're gonna dry out so fast, but that's all right. You could just grow something up here that likes being dried out. So like Mediterranean style herbs is actually what he has in here. Oregano is doing great. Actually, you know what? This would be a great place for mint because it would never spread and it might just cascade over the sides and you have mint you could pick without it getting out of control. And he has a number of these over here. I think he's got some lemon balm also doing really well that he's just cut back as well. That's just like literally hanging on like tension wire. So I really love his use of tension wire. So he could basically grow things up the tension wire, including some of the grapes that you may see right behind me. So this raised bed behind me gets the least amount of sun. In the winter, literally gets no sun. But you guys can see he's still got kale here. He's growing some potatoes here. The fun thing he's doing, he's literally drilled a hole in the side of the raised bed and basically put like a PVC kind of like connector. It's probably like about a, what is it, a 45-degree connector. Fill that up with soil and then basically he'll plant into it. So I think he has like some eggplant planted in both these just kind of coming out the side. It's kind of crazy. And he's got sweet potato coming out the side of one of the ones down there. So yeah, I mean, he's even not just growing in the bed, but he's even trying to grow out the side of the bed as well. And all this is not watered directly, it's watered from the water that waters from the top and just trickles down. All right guys, so you guys can see he has a nice little arbor here sitting in the corner with a chair you could kick back on. And then all around this arbor, these are grapes, guys. He has like so many grapes coming on. You guys can see them all over the place. Like I was just talking to a farmer the other day who's gonna pull out the grapes because it's, you know, skeletonizers and all kinds of problems with grapes, but this guy having no problems with grapes. I guess his only problem is the birds. He says the birds gets a lot of them, so he might, you know, like cover the whole area. I'm like, hey, you could just bag up each individual cluster. He's like, that's a lot of work. But nonetheless, you know, this is a nice little private area, and he's got a fruit tree, like some kind of like a stone fruit tree right behind us that's doing quite well. And then we get to the back wall, which is all the way down, filled with more edible vegetable crops. All right, guys, so you guys can see basically all the way down to his other fence along the whole back wall of his property is all a raised bed garden. He has this raised up. It's probably like at least 3 feet tall, and it goes all the way down. It's probably about 4 feet deep approximately. He has a top raised bed that's actually made out of wood. And then it drops down a little bit to just the standard concrete blocks that he has. And if you even look in the front of the concrete blocks, he's actually drilled some holes to grow things out the front of it. I think in the winter time he'll grow with lettuce, but this one looks like he has maybe some sorrel and some actually bolting lettuce there and other things along the front. And so let's take a look at just some of the crops he's growing along the back wall here. All right, guys, so you guys can see we got basically a pepper plant here. These are like the little small little button peppers. I think this is maybe a peak-wind pepper. Super tiny, super hot. He said this tree has lasted over a year, so it overwintered here because we're at the bottom of the valley, so it doesn't get super cold. He also has another pepper, I think over there somewhere, that also overwintered. Of course, things like the lettuce. We are here in mid-June. This lettuce is totally gone to flower and seed. You guys can see actually over here, this is where he's growing things out the front, including some Swiss chard. He's got standard things like onions. He's popped in different plants like all over the place. He's got mint coming up. Here's some more of the oregano. This is an eggplant. He's got beans climbing up the trellis there. Definitely more squash. I think he's trying to grow a watermelon here. Yeah, and then his beautiful cabbage that he's probably gonna make sauerkraut out of. You can see the cabbage right there. He'll probably have a video on that. Oh, here's some Swiss chard. I mean, this guy like has every little, like, not square inch planted, but like when these plants get big, this place is gonna be totally crowded out. He's even got turmeric growing. I think next I want to show you guys a cool thing he's doing against the back wall to expand his growing space, to grow things vertically, and he's always looking for new crops to grow vertically. So I'm standing up on the concrete block wall, which is the front of his raised beds here. And you can see on the back wall, this is his back block wall or his fence. He has basically the cattle panel here going up the side. He actually has it on standoffs, which is nice. It's all actually welded, which is cool. And he goes up to the height of the fence and then actually comes forward. So this is something I really want to do myself. And then so he could grow things up it, and then they kind of climb above it, and then they could hang down. So imagine having like hanging melons or cucumbers or lupas hanging right here, even beans. I think these are the beans. They're going to hang down and they could easily pick them. So this is creating a lot more space for him to grow food up vertically. That's something I talk a lot about on my channel, growing things in small spaces, especially some of the yards here in Las Vegas are quite small. So this once again allows you to maximize your space, and provided this doesn't go up super tall, right? The HOA in your neighborhood may not get mad at you because this is almost undetectable, because it's not really going high, because it kind of comes up to the level of fence and then just kind of jets up maybe a few additional inches the way he has this set up. I suppose this could probably be put on some kind of hinge system as well, so in the wintertime it could maybe even drop down. That'd be kind of interesting to do. But yeah, I really love this setup along the back wall he has to trellis things up to grow vertically. So here's the second half of his garden against the back wall. Once again, he's got the tree collards that he looks like went to flower, and then he cut it back, and now they're reproducing leaves. He's also, you know, as you guys can see, growing things out the front. So he basically took a drill bit and like drilled out right here, and then basically just shoves a plant in there. And some of these ones on the top, you could maybe remove the top block and dump one in there. He's got squashes growing out the front, so this makes it real fun to grow things out the front. Definitely a more efficient use of space. He's got sage and actually mint that he's trying to eradicate. Looks like he's got some nasturtiums there, basil. He's trying to grow lots of tomatoes, specifically cherry tomatoes up against the back wall there. Just came back from vacation, and some of them took a hit when he wasn't here to hand water them and take care of them every single day. What I'll tell you guys is that here in Las Vegas, some crops are more high maintenance than others, right? I planted a handful of tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, this year. I usually don't even try to plant too many because they are a handful. They're a lot more maintenance and keeping up on things like hornworms and things like spider mites and the heat. When it gets too hot, they don't like to flower and produce fruit as well. And so once again, he went on vacation, then he had some challenges with some of them turning yellow, although plenty of them are still growing pretty good and probably going to recover since he's back now to take care of his babies. All right guys, so this is the other side wall, and over on this wall looks like once again he has lots of potatoes growing that he's experimenting with. See how they're going to do in different areas. He's got carrots, he's got some leafy greens, he's got onions, he's got more squash vining up the side. I think this is the other pepper plant that's been living here I think several years now. He's got some lemon verbena, and yeah, lots of different crops growing. This is like a step system, so he's made out of wood. He's got the taller one and then the shorter one. And yeah, I mean, this guy's got so many things growing, a lot of common things. But today I brought him some gifts of longevity spinach and water spinach. Hopefully he'll be able to grow those quite well, and I'd encourage him to grow things like moringa, you know, as well as some of the other heat tolerant crops that are a little more uncommon, right? That's really where it gets really fun, when you start growing things that you're not even familiar with. And I know that's something he is passionate about, you know, being able to grow food that literally money can't buy. All right, so we're here on a concrete pad, which is actually right next to the house. And for most people, this area would be a place you wouldn't plant because there's an overhang that's probably goes 12 feet out to the pool. And this area has basically another raised bed that he put up. And he said this area normally grows lots of celery that he basically just harvested and he reseeded. But you can see some parsley growing and some kale growing. This definitely gets indirect sun, so this is probably an excellent place for growing things like leafy greens and herbs that don't need a lot of sun. So once again, his goal is to fill in every possible spot he can to grow more food. All right, guys, so we're here down in the other side alley, and you can see he's growing potatoes in like literally milk crates to see how that's going to go. So he has a lot of those, as well as he has a compost pile and worm bin, as well as a chipper to chip up all his yard waste to make it and turn it back into compost. He surely doesn't produce enough compost for all he needs every year to refill his bed, so he's actually bringing in soil once again from Viragrow that he will mix with his pre-made compost. Next up, I want to show you guys another area of his yard where he's even growing more food that most people would think you can't grow food over concrete. All right, guys, so you guys can see basically there's a pool in front of me, and then he has like a little hot tub area, and then on a patio that would probably normal people would probably have like lounge chairs to like lie out in the sun. Instead of lying out in the sun for him, he basically has, once again, those planter beds he got from Tractor Supply for like $100, and instead of just a standard wood color and black color, he painted them white, so this way they reflect the light, don't collect the heat, and get super hot. And once again, he has more edible plants planted in. He also has some vertical tower containers that he also grows up there as well. Looks like those mostly are, they're on irrigation as he goes up over the top on the tension wires, where he also has his lights. He has the irrigation coming up and over into them, but of course I'm sure on a daily basis he waters those as well. I think next up what I want to do is we're going to go ahead and interview the gardener here and learn more about why he grows all this food here in Las Vegas, which is actually quite uncommon. So now the pleasure of interviewing for you guys Richard from Vegas Grown Veggies on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. He's all over the place. I'll put his links down below so you can check out what he's doing. And I think it's really extremely rare that he's even on camera. So thanks, Richard, for being on camera today with me and allowing me to come over to your place to share with you guys out there in YouTube land everything he's growing and how amazing it is to see a front yard garden here in Vegas, because mostly that's like not allowed due to the HOA restrictions that people have. So Richard, how did you get away with growing a front yard garden and making it really nice here in Las Vegas?
I have an HOA, but it's very lax, and I just decided to build it. Build it, and it will grow, I suppose. The main thing is to, if you have the space, utilize it. Instead of having a regular front yard, I'd rather have a food front yard.
Yeah, I mean, you could eat food, and as I showed you guys earlier in this episode, most front yards are even like some AstroTurf kind of like grass looking stuff, which is not edible unless you're a plastic eating microbe, or rocks, which unless you're a rock monster, you're not going to be eating rocks either. So I think it's a great use of space to grow your own food. So Richard, what got you into growing your own food, and why did you want to do it?
I'm just tired of the way that food is processed, and I'm worried about what's on my food. I know that everything in my garden is clean. It's never been touched by anybody. It's not been sprayed with anything. It's just, it's the best food that you could eat. It tastes different. Everything about it is different. I think everyone should grow their own food.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, he's doing it because he wants to provide him and his family the best food possible. And I'll tell you guys straight up, that's not going to happen at your local grocery store, right? I wish it did. I honestly wish it did, right? But the thing is, if you think about it, if you go to food at the grocery store, most of it's all processed food that's made in a factory. You don't know how it was processed, what was added to it, the chemical additives in there. And even if you're buying fruits and vegetables, right? Are those fruits and vegetables grown for your health in mind? No, they're grown for the farmer profit in mind. They pick things early. Things are shipped often unripe, vegetables are harvested, hydro-cooled, put in a truck, shipped across the country to you. Especially here in Vegas, basically most people in Vegas eat food that's shipped in, and if the I-15 shut down and trucks weren't able to come from Los Angeles and other parts of the country, right, there'd be food shortages here. So another reason, of course, to grow your own food is to have food security in your front yard, besides having higher quality food that's being grown for yourselves instead of being dependent on the system. I mean, one of the things I learned many years ago visiting a farmer in Homestead, Florida, is that he wanted me to become a producer instead of a consumer. And all you guys can become a producer by growing your own food, because when you're producing food you eat, that means somebody else and somewhere else in the world doesn't have to do it. And now you could be a less of a consumer and more of a producer. And that's exactly what Richard is doing here. And we both want you to become a producer. It's not hard. So Richard, what has been the biggest hurdle to growing in Las Vegas that you have experienced? Because I mean, I know you tell a lot of people about gardening because you're so excited about it as much as I do. I mean, that's why you're on all these different social media platforms. What do they say to you when you say, oh, you should grow your own food?
What I tell them is that no matter what it is, try to grow it. It's not going to always work, and you're going to find out, some things work better for you than other things. And it goes for me. Like, I grow things that are good, that grow for me, that don't grow for other people. But you have to try everything, and only grow things that you want to eat. Don't grow stuff that you don't think you're going to eat, because that's what you want. You want to eat everything that you grow.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. There's, I like to call some crops are high maintenance and some are low maintenance. My goal these days is I've experimented with a lot of things, and I kind of found my niche and finds what really grew well for me. And I stick with those things. I mean, I plant things that like bugs don't like to eat. I don't get a lot of problems with. They grow despite the 100-degree heat, right? And that's what I show on my garden tours that I give every winter and summer that I've been doing at least for the last 10 years. So you guys can see what I've been growing and then say, oh, why does John grow peppers and these specific kind of peppers, which are banana peppers, every year religiously? Because they're one of the best performing peppers for me, right? I mean, Richard here is growing melons. I don't even try to grow melons because they haven't done well for me, but he's found a melon that grows well for him in his specific situation, his climate, his watering conditions, his soil, and all these things, right? And I think that's great. We all need to find out what works for us. And of course, he grows things that he loves to eat. I'm glad and proud of him that he's growing okra this year, because he's always said, oh, it's always been slimy, but he's going to pick them when they're really young and try them. And I mean, I personally don't think they're that slimy. And actually, I really love okra. I mean, I've learned to adapt and love food that grows here. I never used to love eggplant. I'm a big eggplant fan now. I actually cooked some yesterday in 0 minutes in the Instant Pot and then dipped it into like a dressing and ate it. It was delicious. They're like the sweetest, Las Vegas grown eggplants that like money can't buy in the store, because they're shipped. They're then cooled in a fridge and stored cold. And that's, cold damage can occur to things like peaches, nectarines, even things like summer crops that love the heat. They don't like the cold, right? So yeah, it's so important to find out what works. And the other thing that he said that I'll reiterate is that you may fail more times than you succeed, but that's all right. Failure is a good thing, because that's how you learn. You learn how to successfully not do something, so that you won't try to grow that one again, or you won't grow it again in the same exact manner. Like, hey, I grew all this stuff and I didn't put an irrigation system in, and then I lost everything. Is that a failure? No, that's a success, because you learned you better put an irrigation system in so that it gets automatically watered. So with that in mind, Richard, let's talk about how you water, because I know an important part of your day every day is to hand water. But in addition to hand watering, you also have an irrigation system. So you want to talk about hand watering versus irrigation system, and actually why you do both?
Sure. Obviously, you can't just hand water. I mean, all your plants will die unless you have all day to hand water. But you have to have it on a timer. I have mine set for twice a day for the timer. But I hand water because I want everything to get watered, and it gives me time to look at my plants. You got to look at what's going on. There's a lot of things that are happening. There's a lot of moving parts. You want to see where there's bugs. You want to see, are there leaves dying? You want to see what's going on. So it gives you that time in the garden to look at everything. And it's peaceful. It's really nice. It's a good time to water.
Yeah, it's a nice relaxing time to connect with your plants. And you know, whether you're watering and going around checking your plants while you're watering, or whether you're just going to walk your garden every day, you know, that's something that's very important every day, to check out things. And before a problem occurs, when you start seeing, you know, leaves that are bent or something happening, right, take care of it. Like this morning, I was in my garden and I know some of my plants had aphids, so I literally just cut the plants out and got rid of them, because all the ants are farming the aphids, and that's just going to exacerbate the problem and make the aphids 10 times worse, and they're going to spread to other plants in the same area. So I just cut them out, and if I just let them grow a couple more days, then maybe the ants would spread the aphids to the next plant, and the next plant, and the next plant, right? Cut them out and get rid of them so that they don't become a huger problem. So Richard, another issue in Vegas, of course, is the over 100-degree days. I think last year we had over 100 days of 100 degrees straight. This year, probably the same thing. So what do you do to combat the heat to keep you and your garden cool in the summertime?
I don't use any shade cloth because the way my garden's positioned. I get shade just from the way that the sun moves. I grow a lot of plants that also shade each other, so that helps it out. But I mean, the main thing is water. If when it's hot, your plants need water. And if they don't get the water, they're going to die for sure. So I would say the most important thing is water when you have the heat. Mulch. Everything I have is at least 3 inches thick of mulch around everywhere. So that's another thing that'll save you from your plants dying in the heat.
I mean, I'd say those are all excellent things to do for sure. And I would say personally is that I also don't use a shade cloth. I think it's just too much hassle. It restricts the sun. It can modify the environment and maybe make some crops do better. But of course, as he said, he has lots of shade produced by block walls, his house, the way the sun moves, and all these things, which he can use to his advantage. So as I showed you guys in this video earlier, some of the things where it's more shaded, he plants plants that don't like as much sun. Some of the areas that gets full sun, he plants plants that can handle the sun, you know. And that's the other thing that I would say is you want to plant plants that can handle the sun. So I've learned over the years of plants that can handle the sun, and I plant in full sun. I don't care. And I mean, of course, I have some areas of shade too, and plant some of the more sensitive plants there, and all this stuff. But yeah, it's very important to get to learn nature. I mean, especially he's out every day watering. We're learning where the sun hits, where the shade hits. We're learning, you know, how the irrigation system works, and how maybe this area always gets a little more water than that area, so this area might be able to plant different plants. So I mean, I think gardening is a constant learning and evolving process. So Richard, what are some of your top 3 plants that are the easiest things to grow in the summertime if somebody is watching this and they haven't started gardening in the summer in Vegas and they want to start? Like, what 3 plants would you recommend that are basically, no matter what, no matter how much you screw up, as long as you don't underwater them, they'll always succeed?
Basil.
Basil, yeah, basil.
Yeah, basil for sure. It's expensive to buy and it's really easy to grow. I think collard greens.
Collard greens for the summertime.
Collard greens.
So like Georgia collards, like the standard Georgia collards.
Well, I grow them all year long, and they don't. I have no problem with them. And Swiss chard.
Swiss chard, of course.
That's a monster. All year. Again, in the winter, it will bolt, but it will. You could grow it all the time. I think those are good for a good starter.
Wow, cool. Yeah, no, basil for sure. I mean, it could even take a little bit of dryness and dry out, and it's still going to perform really well. If I had to add anything, what would I say? I mean, another common one that's like related to basil is shiso. That thing just reseeds in my garden every year on its own. It has a flavor similar to basil, but a little bit different. Super simple, super easy. And of course, a lot of the Asian vegetables that I love so much, some of the ones I gave you, like the longevity spinach, the water spinach, going to do well, the Malabar spinach, Egyptian spinach, those are all fairly easy summer crops that love 100-degree plus. Oh, another one, moringa, that's not going to like the winters too much, but just keep it mulched and keep it in a warm spot, and you could get it to come back year after year. So Richard, another question I have is actually not necessarily related to gardening, but I know you start a lot of social media, right? And you don't need to do social media. Like, why are you doing social media and have all these, you know, social media things? I'll post all down below. Once again, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. Why do you do all this social media? Like, what motivates you to be regular on social media and make all the videos you do about your garden here in Las Vegas?
To be honest, the only reason I started the social media was because nobody believed me on how much stuff that I grew here. So the only way that I could show them was to do social media. But then once people started following me, I just want to encourage people to grow stuff. That's it. I mean, I would want everyone to grow something. And that's pretty much, I mean, I feel like if everyone was growing something, there'd be less bad things sold in the grocery store.
I completely agree. Everybody should grow something, especially here in Vegas. Whether you want to grow like Nepalese cactus, and you could eat the cactus pads, or whether you want to grow a fruit tree, or whether you want to grow some herbs in a windowsill, or even some sprouts indoors, right? You want to offset the amount of food you are buying at the store and increase the quality, lower the price in many cases, not all cases, right? And eat real food. And then, you know, once we start eating real food, you know, my belief is that we will start to wake up, because all this food with all these chemicals are doing things to us that shouldn't be happening, in my opinion. And so many people are literally asleep at the wheel. All right, Richard, so I know this is one of the hugest problems that I've had in Vegas, and I think you've also had it as well, is that the main nursery here, and there's like Star Nursery and Moon Nursery, and other than that, there's like these small single nurseries that pretty much don't sell vegetables. Oh, and there's Home Depot and Walmart that sell like Bonnie plants or Burpee, and those things are not even meant to be grown in Las Vegas. They're probably meant for California or more mild climates across the U.S., because you really got to grow special varieties here in Vegas. And of course, the biggest nursery, Star Nursery, unfortunately, it seems like for most of the year, actually, they don't sell any veggie starts. It's maybe they start selling in maybe February, March, April. By June, they pretty much have them on clearance. And then maybe they start bringing the plants back late August, September, October. And actually probably by mid-October, they're clearancing them out again. So like maybe half the year they're selling plant starts, and the rest of the year, Star Nursery, the biggest nursery here, sells no plant starts. And of course, the big box stores only generally sell veggie plant starts in the springtime. But meanwhile, we have a climate here where we can grow year-round. So, I mean, Richard starts a lot of his plants indoors. He also will mail order many plants. I mean, I've mail ordered plants when I can't get local plants. A lot of my seeds, I don't start indoors. I just sprinkle the seeds out, you know, and I'll travel. Actually, I drive to California to bring back plant starts, because that's how hardcore I am. And I'll get really cool varieties that like you can't even get here in Vegas for even less money. But Richard, what are you going to do in the future to make this problem go away so that everybody in Vegas could even grow more and better crops and climate adapted crops here in Las Vegas?
I just signed for a warehouse. I'm going to start an indoor grow where I grow all starts and microgreens. And I'll have starts all year round for everybody in Las Vegas. So any kind of plants that you want that's for this climate will be all year round. There's no break, there's no anything. They'll already be ready to go. It's coming soon, so maybe in the next couple of months.
All right, guys, so yeah, when he gets it open, I'm going to come down and check it out. We'll make a video there to announce it to you guys so you guys know about the best source of plant starts here in Vegas that's available year-round. I mean, I know I have friends that, you know, will start seeds, of course, and sell plants in the springtime, but you're out of luck for the winter time because, you know, people think, oh, there's not a big clientele to do that. But, you know, the thing with Richard is that he doesn't sell them, right? His garden's so big, he'll probably just end up planting them himself. But also, too, you know, I mean, build it and they will come, you know. So I think that with his social media reach that he currently has and reaching more people, and, you know, we want to make the gardening community here in Las Vegas even bigger than it is now, which is actually quite small. I mean, I would say that I visited Phoenix, which is 10 degrees hotter. It's even hotter. It's even harder to grow vegetables down in Phoenix, and they have an amazing gardening community. But for some reason, Vegas just lacks the gardening community here. And, you know, I'm glad that, you know, having plant starts and hopefully a warehouse space, maybe even to have classes and whatnot, you know, we can bring the gardening community and make it even larger and even get more people growing, especially some of these easy to grow crops that are literally a no-brainer, so you could offset the amount of food you're buying for you and your family, have a higher quality food, and even have more food literally at your doorstep without even having to go to the store on the way home from work. All right, Richard, so if somebody wants to learn more about you and what you're up to, what are all your different social medias and how can they contact you?
My name is Vegas Grown Veggies. It's on all platforms, on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook. So if you look up in Vegas Grown Veggies, you'll come to it, and you could check out my videos and ask questions. Sometimes I get to answer stuff. Obviously, I'm not as good as you, but I mean, I'll definitely help you. If you're asking me to grow something, I'm gonna help, because I just want more people to grow stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, Richard's a really amazing guy. Just wanting you guys to grow more food, much like me. I mean, that's why I make all these videos. I travel around all around. I mean, luckily this trip was not so far for me to find another gardener in Vegas growing on a large scale, including a front yard raised bed garden, which to me is just hats off to you, Richard, man. It's amazing you're doing this in your front yard, growing lots of food to offset the food you're buying, to have the highest quality food, and hopefully you can get the message out to more people so that more people will get excited about growing food. And once again, like me, I've had to prove people wrong that yes, you can grow food here in Vegas. It's not just cactus and desert landscaping. You just have to grow the right things at the right time and take care of them the right way, which obviously Richard has learned how to do it, and he's there to teach you guys on all his social media platforms. I'll put all the links down to his social media platforms down below. So Richard, thanks for having me over today. It was so amazing to see your place. It got me so excited about gardening, about what another gardener is doing here in Vegas, and just the amazing amount of work and time you put into this. And I can't wait to see your greenhouse set up in the future and visit you in future years to see how your garden just thrives.
For sure. Thank you.
All right, man. So if you guys enjoyed this episode here at Richard's today, hey, please be sure to give this a big thumbs up. More importantly, share this with other people that live in Las Vegas so that they can see what is truly possible in your front yard if you don't have a HOA or a HOA that is cool with growing food in your front yard. Of course, you can all grow in your backyard unless you have an HOA that gets into your business and won't allow you to grow in your backyard, which really sucks.
Yeah.
Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss my new upcoming episodes that come in every 5 to 7 days. You know where I show up, what you'll be learning on my YouTube channel. Make sure you click the little bell so you're notified as I'm a new to expand. And finally, be sure to check my past episodes. Past episodes are wealth of knowledge. Over 1,700 episodes at this time on this channel dedicated to you guys all about how to grow your own food. A lot of my videos are here in Vegas because that is where I'm currently growing most of my food. So with that, my name is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep on growing.